Hello, and welcome to a video that I have wanted to make all year and haven't been able to because it hasn't happened for me per se. And that may not be what you're expecting. It is to have a 5-star review for a fantasy book from an author that I have tried for the first time, and it was just awesome. The closest I've come is I actually did give it 5 stars. Is Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden, but that was at a time very early on in the year when I was still in the midst of my dissertation, so couldn't do really much about it. But the spear that cuts, yeah, you have no idea how much I say this title wrong and how much Grace looks at me every time. It, you have no idea. The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez is stellar, incredible, to the point that I only finished this like a couple of hours ago, and without even having time for thoughts to kind of coalesce and create kind of coherent sentences. I'm just coming in here because I need to just expel all of the word vomit I have, all the praise that I have for this book, because my golly gosh, it was a banger. I don't think it's still the biggest book in the world. I think it has like maybe 10 to 15,000 ratings on Goodreads, which in the grand scheme of the fantasy landscape is a lot, but also not as much as a lot of other stuff. You know, it's one of those heavy hitters with the people who know about it, but a lot of people are walking around not having experienced what I just experienced. And I know that I hadn't experienced that until like 6 days ago now, but now that I have experienced it, I look down on the rest of you for having not shared that experience, because that's how reading books works. The moment you finish it, you're better than everyone else who didn't read it, and that's a fact. If you do enjoy these individual kind of focused, and by that I mean in this one rambly reviews, then please do like, please do subscribe. They're going to be a lot more frequent because I want to. There will also be a discussion at some point with me, Grace, and definitely Evie, maybe someone else as well, depending on availability. But we're going to talk about this book at length because I need that in my soul. Really, I'm just going to get the plot out very surface level because I think that the joy of this book exists outside of that. Actually, the way to approach this is to explain the narrative framing and then go from there into the plot, because that's kind of what the book does. This is a second novel. It is a second novel, that's true. It came after The Vanished Birds, but it is a second person narrative. You are the person experiencing this story from the perspective of being an audience member who, in the liminal space between wake and dream, are at a theatre watching a performance, and the performance is the story of which this book focuses on. Who would have thunk it? So from that perspective, you're watching the play, and the play is of two men who are essentially, it's hard to, I don't want to give that away. I know it's on the blurb and stuff, but there is an element of growth involved with everything. So essentially what I'd say is that you are following two characters, end up having to make this journey, this long journey to return something to somewhere. It's like Mad Max Fury Road. You're just on a long road trip essentially. The simplicity of how that sounds provides the freedom for the writing style, the narrative framing, all of these things to play around and explore and just completely deconstruct traditional fantasy literature. One thing I loved about this book, absolutely adored, was how there's essentially 3 different voices going on inside of the story. You have yourself, you're being told you are doing this, you are watching this, etc. You have the story itself on the play, which is the third person of like this person did this person did that. And alongside that, because you've got the freedom of a play, you've got the freedom of what Jimenez is tying into, which is ancient Greek theatre, ancient Roman, well, yeah, especially ancient Greek theatre to me, is the voice of the chorus. there are parts where that throughout the book there are parts where a comment will be made about a person and you will hear a snippet of their inner thoughts, their inner dialogue, and it will have I thought or I said in a way where you are aware that they are verbally speaking that to the audience within the play that you are watching. And that just provides a level of dimension to the experience, because you're experiencing it as yourself, as the person viewing it, as watching a performance. So you're invested in every level of this reading experience, and the multi-layered, the multifaceted view of the book just provides a level of connection it allows you to head hop. It allows you to provide all of these inner thoughts of characters that you wouldn't normally have in a third person limited. This completely shits on the concept of third person limited. It it basically just tells, like, it's like, why would you limit yourself when you can experience everything about this viscerally? And I adored that. I adored the choice. I adored the bravery and the ingenuity, the fact that it was rooted in something that I can track, where I'm like, I know where you got this idea, or at least I feel a connection to where you would have got that idea. The voice of the chorus, such a vital thing in theatre, translates to this prose effortlessly. It's incredible how good of a job it does. So that is definitely step one. Second is that the writing itself is astounding. It has the level of dreamness, this ethereal voice that completely enraptured me. Just turning it to like one of the first pages, there's, being the patron gods of artists and dancers, the moon and the water both love the stage, which is why they created their own, a pagoda so tall its height cut through the heavenly bands, within which the performances of the ages would be hosted. The telling of tales beyond even my knowing, she coughed. Even after the moon and water parted ways, the theatre remained, run by their love child, a being of immense beauty, who took in to inviting even mortals such as us to come visit their arena. You asked her how mortals could reach such a place. Through dreams, she said, the cigarette butt ash in her hand. A deep sleep in waters deeper than your dreaming spirit has ever swum before. That's all. Dreams and luck. And when you arrive, you are told a tale of the old country. The right tale at the right time. And when you leave, when your body comes up from that deep slumber, you'll feel satisfied, whole, though you will not remember why. The memory of your visit forgotten, slipped from the mind like soapy water, the way any good dream might the more one tries to recall it. You will try to remember it, with great effort. She smiled, wistful. But you will fail. I know I stumbled, I apologise, out of practice. It actually, mentioning the cigarette butt, pulls me to a different point that I also love about this. This book, because of the nature of you are following it from your perspective as your character, who is someone who exists in a quasi kind of anywhere from like early 20th to mid 20th century, was my perspective, had an awesome feeling of you're someone who exists in a world of cars and smoke and all of these industrial things, and the spirit of the story transcends you to a place of fantasy, and the way that it blends those two worlds together for you to be able to relate your story into it, and the way that the things of what you're being shown connects to the life of your character, is another brilliant exploration. The cat is eating plants. Come on, my dear. You can sit on my lap. Yeah, it's another brilliant element to explore, and honestly, just read this book. It's not going to be for everyone because it is a long book, especially a long book in the style that it is doing. So if you find yourself not jiving with it, I would hesitate. I've seen people say that they struggled until the halfway point and then they loved it. I personally preferred the opening half, which may make me an abhorrent freak to some of you, but you know, I liked it. Really, yeah, I'm just gonna say that you should read it because I don't want to give anything else away because I think there's just an experience that I thoroughly loved because I'd heard people talk about it for so long, but it kind of reached a level of abstraction because I hadn't heard people talk about it for a while. So I knew the basic premise of that you're following a play and that there's a story within the play that you're following. But otherwise, I was kind of clueless. And so experiencing it fresh with that kind of grounding, knowing that it's an experimental writing style, but just allowing myself to experience it worked perfectly. It's a 5 out of 5 for me. It is a brilliant book. It's not quite a perfect book, and it's a perfect book by virtue of some of the choices just not working for me personally. But you know what you're gonna do. It, talk about a gripe because it's still a 5 out of 5. It's the difference between a 5 out of 5 and a 5.5 out of 5 or some shit. It's brilliant. Expect to see it in my best books of the year. Expect to hear me recommend it often. And once again, I hope you did enjoy. Please do like, please do subscribe. Thank you to my patrons as always for their support. And have a lovely rest of your day.